Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Welcome back. I'm Derek Mata.
And I am Andrew Goody. This week, we are coming at you live. Well, not live, we're pre-recorded, but we are coming at you from my childhood home with my father, Edward Goody. We've been doing this podcast for a while, and we've talked about parenting and all the dumb advice that Derek and I have for being a good dad. And somebody made me a good dad, and it's this guy.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We wanted to have my dad on. It didn't say your name. This is Ed Goody. Edward. Ed, do you have a preference these days?
Anything but Eddie.
Eddie Goody. No. We wanted to have my dad on. One, because I like hanging out and talking to my dad, which is what this show is all about. And two, because he's got more parenting experience than either of us combined, and that's across all four of Derek's kids. So
Five. Technically five.
Five. Sorry.
All right. And just, the disclaimer out there for anybody watching, listening, like, obviously, here's my dad. He's not here. Because both my father and my stepfather have passed away since, well, I don't know. Long story short, I don't know who my dad is. So I don't have a dad here. I learned by winging it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna learn from your dad today. I'm gonna learn some advice that he taught you to make you a good dad.
My dad is a great surrogate dad. He'll fill in and teach you lefty loosey, righty tighty, and all those important life skills.
Could you teach me how to change my oil, change a light bulb?
Yes, actually it could, but
these are all things I have learned because I was like, I didn't have somebody to teach me growing up. And I'm assuming he's the one who taught you all those things, because our last episode was DIY. And you did make reference to your dad, having the skills to do all of the things, and you just kind of picked them up as you grew up.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about it a little bit. I mean, we did all kinds of projects and stuff when I was growing up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, from rebuilding the Buick and the Falcon to digging the pool in the backyard to gardening, and I mean, there's not much. I mean, obviously, when specific projects and stuff have come up, I've learned skills on my own. I don't credit it all to you, but just general work ethic and the interest in doing something myself, I think, is something that I learned from watching you growing up. What are there any like projects or anything from my childhood that you remember specifically, other than the time I crushed a gas tank in a car?
I was going to say that one. Yeah, that one stopped us from working on the Falcon ever again.
Yeah.
I got to hear this. Like, tell me this. Like, I want to know the story, and I know our listeners will want to know the story too.
So we had a 65 Falcon, 63 Falcon. That
It's my first car.
was his first car.
That's a junkyard car.
Yes.
Okay.
More or less. Yes. And we has slowly worked on things to get it that he could drive it. He was driving it daily while we were working on it. And, there was some interesting, we couldn't find a windshield wiper switch that actually fit that car. So we were able to adapt one, but you had to go through a certain series of this switch on to get it to go. And if you turned it off the wrong way, you had to go totally
You had to
redo it.
stop the car, turn both switches off, start the car, turn the switches on in the right order, then turn them off in the right order, then turn the car off and start the car again. And then it would work again.
But most of the things we were trying to do with, when we could find the original parts, doing it that way. And I had bought a brand new gas tank because it needed one. It was all rusted out. We installed the gas tank.
Taught me
And
all about the importance of seals and using the right black RVC and
yep. And he gave me a call from work one day. I can't even remember what you were doing, but he needed to jack the car up. And I went to tell him something, and he says, "I know what I'm doing." So fine.
That sounds like you.
like every good 16-year-old, I knew what I was doing.
So when I got home, he had tried to jack the car up with the floor jack under the gas tank, not the drive shaft.
I found a big piece of metal and I put the floor jack under
Jesus
it.
And
Christ.
it didn't lift the car. It just crushed the gas tank.
It did lift the car.
Well-
I just pancaked the gas tank and then kept going.
The car wasn't up when I got home.
Oh God! Like as a 35-year-old man, like that hurts me. But at 16, I would have probably done the same shit.
So that we stopped working on that car. Unfortunately, we sold it and all that, but I wish that's one thing I wish we still had,
Yeah.
but
So trying to kind of tie back to past episodes. What was your reaction as a dad when you heard that this car that you spent so much time and money on, that your kid has just ruined? Like, what was your reaction?
well, I was pissed. But it was his car. He was the one driving it. So basically he crushed his gas tank. I think
But
it
if
was still operational. The gas tank.
Yeah, I just had about 3 gallons that I
Yeah.
could use before I had to change it out. And a 63 Ford Falcon full, because that's about 20 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't happy. I personally think I'm a very passive person, so I don't really get real angry. I don't think most of the time. I mean, I can get mad, but
Yeah, I mean, as
yeah.
all fathers can, because
yeah,
I'm thinking
I
of
think-
from like my standpoint. Like if I gave Lucas a car, like let's say we were working on a car together and he did that, I don't think my reaction would be, all right, cool. Like I think I'll just flip the car. I would have that mom strength, when your kid's left on the car, I'd flip that thing right there. Like I can't believe you fucking did this. But
well,
but
I mean, it
that's-
was a matter of, being mad at the moment.
Yeah.
I probably said some choice words. I don't know, but
Oh, okay, that's fair. And it's I'm just trying to make myself feel better about my choices.
Yeah, I'm
yelling
not-
at children.
no,
Well, I think I don't remember that moment specifically, but a lot of the times that I remember you getting mad when I was a kid, it's very much like the bad movie. Like you weren't mad, you were disappointed, right? That, like
I hate that line.
there are definitely moments that I remember you like losing your cool and yelling when we were kids. But more than that, like the overwhelming majority of the time, I could tell you were pissed because you'd get quiet or you'd leave. Like you would leave the room. And honestly, that's something that I've adapted as a dad, right? Because there are some moments where like I'm sure you wanted to knock my head in when I crushed that gas tank, right?
Yeah.
Like that was
but
something
it's
that
better
we
to
worked
walk
on.
away.
It was a lot of
It's
money.
definitely better to
Yeah,
walk
but
away.
100%, right? And like I don't necessarily think that's passive. I think that's smart, right? I think that there's a big difference between being passive because you are afraid to speak up and being passive because if you let yourself loose, what might happen, right? Like and I think that's something that I definitely learned from you growing up is just the ability to walk away, right? And something that I learned later in life is that I don't know what I'm doing, and listen when he tells me how to jack up a car.
One day my kids will need to know, and I will teach them. Right now is not the time. But
I don't know. It sounds like Lucas could change your oil right now.
we're not getting into that. But those are some of the skills like I never did learn. Like my stepdad was not a father figure in my life. He was just the guy who just brought in money. So I didn't get to learn how to show emotion, and we've talked about this too. So when I'm angry and I show my anger. But at the same time, I have also learned like I want to solve the problem here and now. You make me angry, let's talk about it. The problem being the people that make me angry are my children. Yes, honey, I know you're listening, but you can understand because they don't listen or they do some stupid shit. And I want them to understand, hey, I'm angry because here's how you don't do it again. Within 5 minutes, they stop listening. 2 hours later, I'm ready for bed. It's hard because I want to be a good dad, but I don't know how to be a good dad because I didn't have that example. So walking away was never taught to me, even though that is a very smart thing to do. If you're angry, take a second. I will, and I know my wife will listen to this episode at some point. I get mad when she walks away because again, I want you to solve the problem here and now. Like you're mad, I'm mad. Let's talk about it. Let's say our angry words, and then we'll be over it. At least I'll be over it, but that's neither here nor there.
Sometimes if you take those extra seconds, though, you become smarter. You when you deal in anger, you're not always the smartest person. You know, you're saying things you shouldn't say. Sometimes you're saying things you don't really mean. Where if you give yourself a few minutes, hour, whatever it takes.
I've been guilty of that as a husband, saying that, and I know as a father, like especially like let's take my youngest too, like they are absorbing everything. And so they're going to learn like, oh, my first reaction is to fly off the handle. So when I'm mad, I'm going to fly off the handle. But yes, if I took that single breath, the whole situation would have been different. So that is great advice from a man
they're
who
also
raised
learning. Yeah, they're also learning from your children too.
Yeah.
You know, your older children. I think we thought we had less problems with Andrew.
I was just better at not getting caught
because he learned from his sister. You know, he watched how we watched over her, or how you want to say that, and was able to skirt around that. So
and I think that's one of the issues that like I'm dealing with is like I have a 13-year-old and I have a 2 and a 3-year-old.
Yep.
So they're of course seeing like, hey, this is what is okay. This is what I can get away with because we try not letting our anger get the best of us sometimes. But of course, like as a 3-year-old, you're like, I don't know what that means. I'm going to do what I want. So it's something I'm not looking forward to, sort of ish, because my wife has always told our kids, I got away with everything, or I did everything, and I will know, and I will catch you.
Yeah, you can't catch everything. That's the reality of it is, and you know, one of the things that I'm trying to, you know, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but one of the things that I'm trying to really lean into with Alana is just opening that communication constantly, right? That like it's not that I didn't feel like I could, like I didn't feel like I couldn't come to you guys and tell you about things, but because of, you know, watching Amanda, my older sister, watching Amanda get punished for things, or watching her, you know, be restricted in certain ways because she did certain things. When I started getting into trouble as a kid, I hid it, right? Well, I kept it secret.
You always hide. Always hide.
Yeah, but like I found myself in a lot of positions where if I had just been comfortable saying, hey, you know, Dad, I fucked up and I'm in over my head, you could have pulled me out of the situation.
Yeah.
And rather than that, I was hiding that from you. And so like and I'm sure you had the same approach, right? But like I'm trying so hard with Alana to just teach her like there is nothing that you can't tell me. Like if you mess up, if you do something wrong, if you do something like I want to hear about everything. I want that constant communication. I want to know what's going on in your life because good or bad, I'm your dad and we're in it together and we're gonna work through it, you know?
And the more you can get to that, the better. You won't have it 100%.
Yeah.
There's always going to be things they don't want to tell you.
Well, and especially I am sure that we will probably maintain that level of trust until she's a teenager. And then teenagers are, I mean, I hate to throw that stereotype out there, but like there's a, and we talked about it in a previous episode where like there's a hormone change that happens when you're going through puberty and when you're in that era where you're invincible. You know what the fuck you're doing. You know how to jack up a car. You know, you know everything you need to tackle life. So why would you tell your dad that you're in too deep, right? When really like you don't even know the half of how deep you're in. You're already drowning and you don't even understand it. And that like because of that, you know, hormone shift and that mentality shift, that is when a lot of kids stop sharing things with their parents, at least completely transparent.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're trying to teach Lucas. Like we say, we don't care how small it is. Like, come tell us about it. Like, we are here for you. We want you to succeed. And like, we have said it so many times that when we have our 2-hour-long talks, like he knows that we're not in it because we feel good, because we punish you or we say this or we say that. Like, we want you to succeed. That open communication will do you good in life. Like, I'm terrible at communication. Ask my wife, ask my children. Like you and I, like, I'll just tell you something and my communication is terrible. But it's so hard for kids to understand that. Like even Noah, we'll take Noah as the prime example. Like, hey, Noah, what happened? I don't know. But like it's a learned thing, or I guess he doesn't feel comfortable. I'm not sure. Like this is this is the first kid I've raised from newborn to almost 4 years old. We're not getting into my life story here, so it's all new to me at this point too. So,
and by saying I don't know, he's not admitting anything.
Exactly, and I'm like,
he doesn't want to admit that.
That's an I plead the fifth answer.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and like just talk to me. Like I would love for you to just tell me what the problem is. Or even like I want to use Lucas as the main example here. Like, please talk to me. Like, I want you to know how to approach another human being as your father. Like I want to be there for you. Like, do that for me. But you can't teach kids anything, because again, they're invincible. They know everything. I'm stupid and I know nothing. I haven't experienced fucking life a couple of times.
Well, and so much of it is just them observing you, right? Like there's a ton of stuff that I learned from you that you didn't just actively
by
teach
watching
me. I mean, I accredit so much, and like Emily will attest to this. She says it all the time. I will accredit so much of what a good partner I am to Emily, and what a good husband I am to my wife, to my dad. And he never said like, I mean, I'm sure we had like a birds and a bees conversation about what relationships are, but like, you never told me like, this is how you take care of your partner. This is how you show up for somebody. You just did it, right? Like every time something came up, you were there for mom. Every time something happened, you were supportive and you were loving and you were caring. And by watching that example, I became, and like it's so funny because like every family gathering will leave and Emily will be like, did you see when your dad was doing that thing with your mom? That's you do that. and so much of it is just like, because again, like you didn't teach me that, but I absolutely learned it from you. You know?
Yeah. So, and I will say, like, on that fucking situation, like, my children, my two youngest, do watch what I do for April. Like, they're so sweet to her when they're like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Hey, I need this. Can you go find it? And they're like, I'm there, because like, if she asks me to do something, even if I am comfortable laying in bed covered up and I have reached that maximum comfort level, I'm like, yes, dear. And I will get out of bed to the point that if they say something, they say yes, dear, or dearest, because that's what I call her sometimes. So like they are listening there, and I love it. Like, dearest, can I
Yeah.
do this? Or
Yeah.
they'll do the laundry because if she's like, hey, can you go swap the laundry to the dryer? Of course. Like, okay, cool. They're gonna go do the laundry. So again, that's it. They watch, kids watch everything.
So what else? I mean, we talked about the car. Are there any like, and not necessarily projects, but are there any moments from, I know it's a loaded question, but from my childhood that really stand out in your mind?
There's a lot of us building Estes rockets together. I love doing that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's always fun.
So, hey, let me interject here. So
okay.
as a father, obviously our children, you know, Andrew over here had a lot of different hobbies. So how did you decide what to invest your time and money into, and what to be like, you might not actually be into that? Because as having a teenage kid, you know, they're into everything but nothing at the same time.
Right. How do you decide? A lot of it, I think, depends on how much time they're putting into it. For example, his music. We bought him a guitar, and I wouldn't have normally said right away, get him lessons. But because he was spending time trying to learn and everything, I paid somebody to come over and, you know, teach him once, I don't know, once a week he came over, whatever it was.
Something like that.
But,
Yeah.
you know, because he was more involved and showing me that he really wanted it, you know, I was willing to spend more. I couldn't teach him how because I didn't know how, but I was willing to put the money to it. A lot. I don't know. It's hard to decide. It shouldn't matter, but a lot of it depends on how much money you have to spend on it. You know, we didn't have a lot of money when he was growing up, so we did have to pick and choose what we spent our money on. So, I mean, it's like if he were to start off and you spend the money on the guitar and then 2 weeks later he wants drums, well, then you're not going to sit and spend all your money on music equipment until he picks one, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect
You know?
sense. And like, and the reason I ask is because like we'll say, well, like I said, we're gonna take Lucas as an example. Like he was really big into soccer way before I came into his life, and like then we kept putting him into soccer, and paying for it, and paying for it, and paying for it, and like he's like, I actually don't care. And but as a parent, obviously finances come into place, you know, or into play here. So I was just curious, as somebody who's been through it, obviously a couple of times, you and your sister, Goody, how do you see what is it? What are those things like? If Lucas came to me like, I want to work on cars, and I buy a car, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, fuck this, and he's out, then I'm like, shit. So I was just,
well, first,
honestly,
don't put the car in his name; it's in yours. So
well,
you
of
can just
course.
sell it.
It's Derek. It doesn't matter whose name the car's in. He's gonna flip it anyway.
Nobody needs to know what I do.
But no, does he still now? He doesn't want to do soccer anymore.
No. So the biggest thing is he is not a team sport kind of kid. He is I'm in it for myself. So he's been doing track and wanting to do track. At track, only you are
Yep.
responsible for your time. So we're like, hey,
Yep.
we'll buy you some shoes, we'll buy you some whatever. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I don't believe that you should force him to keep doing a sport that he doesn't want to do.
we got a timeout here.
And we're back.
That's right.
Such is dad life.
Yeah, that's right. I had to
Um,
go take care of one kid, and now the other one's crying, but she will be okay. Trust me, I'm listening to everything that goes on in my household.
Oh, yeah, I think so. So we were talking about, hobbies and how you invest, time in your hobbies. And one thing you mentioned that we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and that's definitely true. I think one of the things that you did that when I was a kid was really frustrating, but now that I'm adult, I appreciate both because it taught me work ethic and because I understand that you're just a clever bastard. Um, when I got a new hobby and wanting something for it, you would give me the start, right? Like you bought me a guitar, and then I got really into that, and I wanted to get a better amp and picks and straps and cords and cables and all of this other stuff. And you didn't just keep buying me that stuff, but you gave me the opportunity to earn money to do that. So it was like, hey, I want a new strap for my guitar. Can I have that? No, but like you can go wash the car and mow the lawn, and I'll give you $20 and you can go get whatever guitar strap you want, because that's, and like you gave me the opportunity, you gave me a job. You gave me the opportunity to work for the things that I wanted.
Well, and that gives you an idea of what's more important. Like I said, how important things are. If they're willing to work for it, then I might actually go buy him something also later, but it showed the effort that he put into it, that he wanted it.
Yeah. There were a lot of times that you did that where like, I would, and I wish I could think of a specific example off the top of my head. So much of it was musical stuff, because once I found that music was the thing that I was into, it was who I was for like years. But like, there were a couple times where it was like, hey, I want this strap for my guitar. No, but here's this way to earn money. And then it would be like, I was doing this job to earn $20 so I could buy a guitar strap, and you'd give me $40 so I could go buy that guitar strap and some cables, or whatever the thing that went with that was. And that's definitely something that like, I don't think I ever had like an allowance growing up, right? Like we had chores that we could earn money from, but that it was never like a carte blanche Friday pay up, dad, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, we don't do allowances in my house either. So
Yeah. One, and I think, growing up, growing up, that was something that was really hard for me, but in hindsight, and that's so much of, especially now that I have my own kid, but even before that, and you and I have had conversations privately that like, there were a lot of times that you were tough on me as a kid that in the moment felt bad or hard or really challenging, that now I'm really grateful for, because it taught me to be the person that I am, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because you always see, we had our episode about parenting styles, the raised by the boomers, Gen X, or Gen whatever the fuck our parents are, or previous generations to us. Because there's that Facebook thing I see all the time. Is like, I thought my parents were strict, but now I see that they saved me, because look at the current generation. Like, a lot of the times we always think our parents are just the meanest people and they hate us and they just enjoy punishing us. Trust me, I see it every fucking day. No, I don't ever enjoy punishing my child or disciplining or whatever word you want to use, but it is nice that you can turn to him and be like, hey, I can see what the benefit was for it, because I kind of raised my children the same way. Obviously there are differences, but like kind of the same way my parents raised me, air quotes here, we won't get into that story. It's that work ethic, which we discussed in the working episode. It's the not everything is given to you kind of thing. It's the consequences to your actions. That is a shout out to my wife and my first ex-wife.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's nice to hear that you have become the dad you are, and like, I look up to you as a dad, honestly. Like, all bullshit aside, like, when I grow up, I want to be goody as a dad. I'm older than you and I have more kids than you, but I can see where he gets it from. and I keep doing this because my camera's right in the middle and you're on the left side. So I can see where he gets it from, and it has worked out perfectly. So you did a great job. Just so you know, as a third party outside looking in, like you did a great job raising your son to be the man he is.
I appreciate that. I think that also, and I have to assume that everybody is like this, maybe not. I didn't necessarily think I was doing a good job when I was raising them. I think that all parents don't, it's my own opinion, don't think they're doing it well enough. But we do, you know, I mean, I didn't have a good example to follow. So when I was raising, I mean, some of the things I learned from my father, but most of it was trial and error. And you don't always think that you're doing it right. And until they become this age and you find out they're pretty good kids, you know? So
That's actually that's that's where I'm at right now. Like, and I tell my wife all the time, like, I don't feel like I'm a good dad because, you know, dad gets involved when things go wrong and mom's at her wits end. And I'm like, and that's when I raise my voice, and my deep voice just like goes throughout the neighborhood. And of course, when something goes wrong, they want mom and they never want dad. I'm like, God, what am I doing wrong here? So like, it's refreshing to hear, like, you never think you're doing a good job, but you probably are, because look at Goody. Everybody just look at him.
I think most of it
Um,
is being there.
Yeah.
You know, make
Well,
sure you're being there is the number one thing.
You know, we say it all the time. The hard part's showing up, right?
Yes.
Everything else is icing on the cake. Like the fact that you were worried about whether or not you were a good dad means you were a good dad. Because if you were a shitty dad, you wouldn't have cared. Like you wouldn't have been concerned that you were doing a bad job raising me, because you would have, like, you know, like the fact that you're taking the time to stop and you know, it's in our intro, like the fact that you're listening to a podcast about parenting means you're probably a pretty good parent. Like if you're thinking about, like, man, am I doing the right thing? That is the hard part, trying to do the right thing.
Yep.
You're not going to get it right 100% of the time. And really,
Nope.
the secret is there is no right way. There are some really wrong ways.
Yeah, all right.
But there is no
Yeah.
is no perfect way to be a parent. There is no great way to be a dad. You just got to do what you can with what you got, and figure it out.
And open up to other dads. Like we always feel like we're in it alone and we're in it by ourselves. Like, let me tell you, like there are so many times that you know, before you and I reconnected a while back, like I wish I had someone to go to, because again, I never had a father figure. I didn't have a dad I can go to and ask for advice. Like, you never know, the guy down the street that you walk past to go check your mail every day, like he might know what you know, or he might know what you need to know, and you might know what he wants to know, kind of thing. So like, just have that conversation with a dad, and because at the end of the day, who wins? Our kids win,
Yep.
and that is what
Yeah.
is important.
Totally. So, without going too deep down a rabbit hole here, I know that your relationship with Grandpa wasn't like stellar. There were a lot of things that I'm sure you wish were different about your childhood. Is there anything specifically that, like when I was born, or I guess when Amanda was born, because she was your first, but like that you were like, I'm not going to be this, right? Other than the gross generalization of you knew that you wanted to be different.
Yes,
There
was,
You know, were there
Yeah.
specific moments or things? And additionally to that, what came up along the way, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, you had, 33 years going strong. You're still my dad. You're still parenting me. Every time we talk, I learn something.
yeah.
Like,
I think a lot of the way I feel has changed over the years. I don't hate my father anymore. So, when you guys were born, my thing was was not going to raise you like I was raised. I see my father grew up in an orphanage, you know that. And so he didn't have a father figure to look after. I think he did the best he could. I give him that credit now that I didn't before. But any specific things, I can't think of anything except, I mean, he left my mom when I was 2, so I didn't see him again until I was 6. Something I would never consider divorce. It was just very militant, I guess, is the only word I can think of. And that was not who I wanted to be.
So not so much the specific attributes, but just the general attitude towards parenting. Is that what you'd say was his approach to, and I mean, maybe just life. I mean, grandpa was kind of that way.
I work at time
like
from him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good things I got from him. I didn't give him any credit for it growing up. And but as far as family, I really didn't feel loved. That love was given to you by what I can buy you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I mean, it's funny. You've never told me that about your childhood, and I think that's like the polar opposite of the way that you raised me, which is interesting to observe, right? Not to say that you didn't buy me things, but like that was never like, it was never like, oh, dad loves me, so he bought me this guitar. Or, dad loves me, so he bought me this N64. It was just like, oh, like, cool, I have a thing. And also, my dad loves me. My dad loves me because he's housing me and clothing me, and feeding me and playing with me and spending time with me and telling me that he loves me. Like, and I think that's just interesting. That's interesting to know.
It was also hard being in a divided household, having,
Going back.
I was constantly going back and forth between the two of them. That was made things difficult.
Yeah.
And blamed him for that, so.
Yeah,
And,
no,
and-
it makes
and
sense.
and it's interesting that you say that, because like I feel like my 2 oldest daughters probably feel the same way that you did when you were younger. I bet you they're placing a lot of blame on me because they don't know. I'm obviously not comparing, apples to apples here, but like they don't know the rest of the story. Like,
Right.
right in their
Exactly.
minds, dad is the terrible person. But I will say that the buying you things to show you love has been a fight that I've had to pull myself out of, because I guess like your dad, like I was never shown that kind of love. I was also never bought things to show you that I love you, but like that's for whatever reason, that's what I learned. And I've had to get myself out of that. Like people, that's not what people want. That's not what my kids want. That's not what my wife wants. So
And when
it's-
you only see them for a short amount of time, sometimes buying them something,
it just
you
seems like the
think they're
easiest
gonna
way.
remember it longer so that they love you more, that,
Well, I obviously I don't have any experience with this directly, right? But on the receiving end or the giving end, but I can imagine just understanding how, humans work. You're buying a reaction, right? Because a kid is going to be super stoked that they got a cool new thing.
Right.
Whereas they might be kind of lukewarm to see their dad that they haven't seen in a while because they have all of this feelings of resentment and negativity towards them. And so by buying their affection, you're getting that happy, positive reaction in that short time that you have, instead of earning it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you show up for a week and you're there and you're compassionate and you're playful and you're engaging, they're going to be just as happy to see you as they would be to see that thing,
Right.
but that takes a lot more effort. That takes a lot more time and investment. Not to speak ill of you or your dad, but like, you know, I can see the ease of purchasing that feeling rather than earning it.
I mean, it's been a struggle within the past, you know, I'd say within the past 10 years that it's taken me to get out of that. So it's weird that that would be my first thought would be buying things is the way to go. Like it's not.
No, it's not.
Like I'm sitting here and I can remember memories of growing up. I can't remember except for one thing my parents or my stepdad ever bought me. And it's because CPS was called. Yeah, like that's like I said, whole different story. We won't get into that. That's the only time I remember an item purchased for me, but I remember the things. Like I learned to grill from him the one time we ever grilled, and he said charcoal is better than propane. And he put the charcoal briquettes under my eyes to put the little char, and I was like, that memory has stuck with me to this day, and I'm 35 fucking years old. And I think that was what, 20 fucking years ago, maybe even before then. Like, so those of you who are listening who think that your kid wants the item, they don't want the item. They want that experience,
The time.
like that time. Take them out to go do something. Take them out to go do something that they want to do. Let me clarify that. Not something that you want to do.
Drink a beer with them on their podcast.
Something I wish my dad ever did with me, but he didn't. Instead, he just got me drunk about 15 years old, and I have been in love with alcohol ever since.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about. You know, people talk about like cycle breakers a lot, right? Like you're breaking the cycle of this thing, and it comes up in parenting a lot that like our generation is, you know, and I think I mentioned it on our very first episode that the difference between parents of your father's generation, right? So my grandfather,
Mhm.
and my generation, there was a study, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Time Magazine that did this thing that was they asked, you know, it was like men over 70 and then new fathers about their like diaper changing habits, and like people of grandpa's generation,
Never
it
did.
was like less than 1% of men had changed a diaper, and our generation it's like upwards of 60% because fathers are getting more involved, and frankly mothers are demanding partners to be partners and show up more. So like, hey, good on you ladies, keep us whole out here. But like, you know, I definitely credit a lot of that to you, because I think that if you hadn't broken that cycle of how you were raised by grandpa, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be doing the things that I'm doing with Alana, right? Like I wouldn't be the person who wanted to show up for my kid.
I agree with you, but I think that also generations did that, not just me. Time, you know, I mean, I changed some diapers, but even if I didn't, you probably still would be now, just because of
Because Emily would make
society. Well, yeah, but you know, just the way society is,
Yeah.
it is going to change some, whether I was involved in that or not. But again, something that I was doing, you were seeing, well, you probably weren't seeing me doing.
I mean, not consciously.
Yeah.
Since I was the youngest, I definitely know. I don't remember you changing my diapers,
Right,
but
right.
I'm sure somewhere deep in my mental
deep
process,
down there.
there's an understanding that you were
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right?
But just seeing how fathers are more involved in the household now, and when I was, than my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder if part of that isn't a generational shift. And we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole here that we won't, but you know, it kind of stems back to Depression era parents, right? You know, if you were a parent like if you existed through the Great Depression, that generation taught their kids how to survive, right? How to get by, how to live. Whereas
How to store.
how to store,
Hoard.
how to hoard. Well, but out of fear of necessity, right?
Right,
Not
yes.
necessarily out of greed, which I
Right.
feel like a lot of hoarding now is out of desire for more, not
Right, right.
desire to survive that bad thing that, well, I mean, maybe a little bit of both. We won't go there, but like, you know, and you got to teach me a little bit more how to enjoy and how to have fun and how to play. And that, you know, to your point, is a societal thing, right? That's where the world was. Like there wasn't a world war or a depression or anything looming over you. Which, like, God knows what that means for my kids, because how many world changing events have we lived through in the last 30 years? But
That's fair.
but yeah, but I mean, I think that's, you know, society plays a huge part in it, but you chose to partake in that, right? You chose to be one of the people who was changing that
Yeah.
stereotype and show up. And I think that's important. We're getting a little long here, but I've got one more question, because, and it's a loaded one.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
I'm one of two, and my older sister is a sister. Differences between raising a boy and raising a girl. Any insights for the general public?
because I need that, because I've got two about the same age.
Wow. I think it all depends on the child. I think raising you was easier than her, because
I'm better and perfect.
exactly. No, but I
Okay,
think that,
so my
I
first
love you,
I went
man.
to
I know you're
Ivy.
listening somewhere.
Well, I went to Ivy. Like, Ivy is so much easier.
but I don't know if that's because she's female or she was the first.
Oh,
She because
definitely because she was the first.
I think it's the first.
I was
thing.
learning things from her, and yes, you only have one. So when you get two or more, things change. But with the first one, everything is a first.
Yep.
So by the time let's just say potty training, by the time you were ready to potty train, we've already potty trained one. Doesn't mean you were easy about it.
Yeah.
But we'd done
But
it.
you know,
once.
kind of.
So I
what
don't
that
know
looks
if
like.
that has to do with whether the boy or the girl is any easier.
Real quick,
Hi.
what is the age difference between you and your sister?
2.5 years.
Okay. So continue. I just wanted to.
They're just right together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as teenagers, for me, you were easier because
Because you were less defensive.
I wanted to keep boys away from my daughter. I
That's
should have
fair.
been thinking, and I wasn't thinking about keeping you away from other girls. You know, that's their parents' problem. No,
You should have been.
but you know, so I think a lot of it has to do, I don't know. I know there's a time period where teenage girls, from what I hear, and your sister was an example of that, were totally monsters, but only to their mothers. So she was I was okay with her during those ages, but your mother couldn't even deal with her.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. You know?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It's a loaded question. I can't tell you what's worse, or I should say better. I don't, neither one are worse.
It's what's different.
Yeah. But I think the major thing is when your first one, no matter whether it's a boy or a girl, you're learning right along with them.
Yeah. Yeah. One, I think think part of that is experience, right? Because like I'm the youngest, and the first diaper I changed was my kid, right? Like the first baby I bounced, the first baby I burped, the first bedtime I like, everything
Right.
is mine. Whereas like, I think if you're, the oldest sibling, or if you come from a big family and have a lot of cousins or stuff that you've taken care of, you have a little bit of that experience inbuilt. But in our situation, where like I had no idea what I was doing when Alana was born. Like I called you for just about everything, or said, "Hey Emily, you know how to kids. What do I do?"
And if your sister would have had a child already, you probably wouldn't have changed her diapers anyway, right? Sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
You would have told your sister, you do it. It's yours.
Yeah. Those are kids you can give back. I don't have to change those diapers. Yeah. No, you're right. And yeah, I think that's and I'm curious about it too, right? Because as Emily and I have talked about baby number two, the question has never been a question of biological sex. It's always been, how is having two going to change things, right? Because we like I had this really interesting thing happen where Alana was a surprise, right? You know this. I don't know if you know this. I know our listeners don't know this. Alana was a surprise. We did not know her sex until she was born. We wanted to keep it a surprise. There are only so many genuine, real, actual, I don't know what's going to happen surprises in life, and we wanted to hang on to that. Emily and I were both convinced, like 100%, no doubt in our mind, that she was going to be a boy. We didn't necessarily like want that. I kind of did. But like,
is that American male fucking?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, and really, it was, for me, it was familiarity, right? Like, we're talking about doing things for the first time. I've been a boy, so like, yeah, I've never changed diapers, and I've never had those experiences, but I know what male anatomy is, and what being a teenage boy is like. I have no idea what the experience of having a period or dealing with any of being a girl in America is like, right? It is unquestionably more challenging because of patriarchy. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what it looks like. So I was inclined to have a boy, but I was not in any way upset that I had a girl. And I was, as corny as it is, as long as she was healthy, I didn't really care. But when I found out that we were having a girl, well, when we had a girl, I found out, I kind of expected, because I had like played through the scenario in my mind, right? Of like, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to be a girl. Maybe it's going to be a boy. I was like playing through the scenario in my mind, and I was thinking like, it's going to be hard if I'm going to have to figure out a lot if it's a girl. And I was so thrilled when she was born and she was a girl. And I have found that none of my expectations were accurate. I'm doing all the same stuff. And I'm sure like having a teenage girl is going to be different than having a teenage boy would. And obviously puberty is a very different dynamic, but like, it's challenging no matter what. It's difficult no matter what. The sex of your kid doesn't really matter. It's who they are. It's their personality and the ways that you show up for them, the relationships that you build, drastically more so than it is, any biological imperative.
Yep.
I mean, that's fair. Like, because I've had a handful of kids at this point. Like, I kind of same thing. Like, hey, I want a boy because boys, and then I had girls, and I love them. Like, let me tell you, Ivy, I hold so tight. I'm like, I am never gonna let you go, and she's like, Daddy, like, please stop. But no, you're right. It doesn't matter what the sex is. Like, potty training Noah, like, hell, I've been a boy. I don't remember that age. I couldn't tell you what it was like to be that age. When he's a teenager, I'm going to be about 100 years old. I won't remember what it was like to be a teenager, and they will do a whole different thing than what we did as teenagers.
Yes.
So it's all fun. Just enjoy the ride. Do the best you can.
Yep. Totally. Well, and I mean, we talk about that all the time, right? That's that's dad life. It's just hanging on for dear
Yeah.
life and doing the best that you can.
That's right.
And I think you guys are doing a good job giving other fathers an outlet to hear what you guys have to say. You know,
And you know, that's all we want is, you know, we want them to know that, hey, we have advice, but like we're open to advice too. Like we say it every week. Tell us what you want us to talk about next. Like, tell us what you're going through next. Like, we want to, this is a podcast for you. This is not a podcast for us. If you're going through something, or if you witness something, or if you know another dad is about to go through that same thing, let us know. We will gladly tell you about it. I have, like I said, a handful of kids. I have been through the whole spectrum of shit at this point. Like, I can give you some
you've
kind of
just
advice.
begun.
You're not wrong. but for us with younger kids, you know, 13 and younger, because that's the only experience I have.
Yeah.
We're here for it. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Like, and if you want to hear old Ed here, Edward, whatever you want to go by, like if you want him back on this podcast because he has been through 2 kids who are now, I'm assuming, successful adults. I know you're successful. I don't know your sister's story, but we won't get into that.
She's way more successful than I am. So
Oh, perfect. So if you want Goody's dad to be on here again, because he obviously has done a fantastic job because of his kids, let us know that too. We will gladly have him back on. We'll work with his schedule so he can teach you something and teach us something at the same time, because like I said, I'm fucking winging it. I don't fucking know.
yeah. Well, and you know, we appreciate you spending your time with us and joining us for this podcast. Like Derek said, we don't purport to be experts. We're just trying, and that's the best thing that you can do as a dad.
Yep.
Our social media links are posted down below. Give us a like, follow our accounts, comments on what you want to hear next, and if you want to have my dad back on to give us more of his wisdom.
I'll tell you, I do, honestly. Like, I would like you back on, because like I don't have a dad, so hearing it from you and watching Goody be successful, you have something to teach me.
For sure. Well, and I 33 years strong, I can report dad has a lot more to share. So
You can come over for a barbecue, and I probably won't use charcoal.
there you go.
You know what? I'm there for
He's
free
gonna
food. I'll
sell
bring
you
some
on the
beer.
merits of propane and propane accessories. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate every single one of you out there. If you're going through it and you're having a hard time, just don't let the hard days win, because you're a good dad and you're meant to be a dad, and your kids appreciate you being a dad.
That's right.
Until next week, I'm Andrew Goody.
I'm Edward Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
And we are proud of you.